Hello and welcome to this game development blog. My name is Arno, and in this series we will investigate whether we can add some machine learning to a real-time strategy game. We're using Unity to develop the game, so we will be diving into Unity machine learning agents. Unity released their first production version of ML agents this summer, so it's the perfect time to look into it. I think this series will be about 4 to 5 videos long, and it's not meant as a tutorial. I'll definitely share my insights, but you should look at it as a journey. So it's also my first time using Unity ML agents, so don't take everything I say as the one and only truth, since I'm learning it as well. While we're on this journey together, it's possible I'll occasionally drop some random technical term and then forget to explain. I'll try to avoid it as much as possible, but what I can certainly promise you though is no code. There is a lot of code under the hood, also to get the machine learning stuff to work. It doesn't really work out of the box, so there will be a lot going on. But if there is one surefire way to antagonize people, it's just randomly bringing up code during a polite conversation. Or in this case, a monologue. It's just rude, and I'm a gentleman. So there will be no code. In this first video, I will give a quick overview of the context, artificial intelligence in a real-time strategy game. KBB, that's the name of our game here, is actually also a first-person shooter, but we will pay no attention to that element here, so that's just a side note. In the second video I will go more in detail as to what we actually want the machine learning agent to do, specifically. So we will be setting some expectations. Then the following videos, I'm not sure how many there will be, like I said, maybe 4 in total or 5 in total, we'll have to see. But then we will be diving into actually implementing this reinforcement learning. So I will be trying to solve our little problem, that still needs to be defined. And it might fail miserably, I'm not sure at this point. The thing is, KBB was never meant to accommodate machine learning agents. It's not a perfect setup for training models. All the ML agents examples I encountered so far are basically revolving around training a model. They are just, they're not even real games usually. They're just all about training a model. So here it's not the case. We have this game at a certain stage of development and it will have to do. So it could be a great success, but it's also possible we end up with total garbage. That's real life for you. But hey, like I said, it's the journey that counts. So what will be our goal? The RTS part of KBB is really your old school real-time strategy. So you build some tanks and you attack the enemy base. That's really the gist of it. If you want some examples of this, just look at Warcraft, Starcraft, the entire Command & Conquer series, Companies of Heroes, Dune 2 for those who are old enough to have enjoyed that. I don't think there's a real need for me to explain what the RTS genre is all about or how it plays. What might be interesting though is if I give you some information on how the AI of these things usually work. I can talk about state machines, and actually I should talk about state machines, but I'm not going to, because I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. Usually these AIs, they are just a bunch of hard-coded rules. They're called then heuristic AIs. So for example, the enemy builds some tanks. Alright, then we need a few units with bazookas to go and destroy those tanks. So that's how these AIs reason. So there's one overarching AI that can easily be compared to a general of an army. And this AI decides for every unit approximately what it has to do. Then it's up to those units themselves to follow their orders and implement them in their specific way. For example, a tank might get the order to go scout and gather some intel. It will then do so. But this will be in a different way than, let's say, a jet fighter would do it. Because a jet fighter has some AI as well to deal with the fact that it is a jet fighter. So it will handle things differently. It's flying and stuff. So this is really an oversimplification, of course. If you really want to know how a heuristic AI like this one is created, I recommend reading the recently released code for Command & Conquer Red Alert Remastered. It's just beautiful. It really reads like a novel. I can definitely recommend it. But okay, so heuristic AIs, they are all handwritten. Someone sat down and thought about the decision rules, played the game, changed the rules, etc, etc. It's basically if then else. But these things can get really complex with a lot of these if then else. There can also be some randomness. But in that case, they are still following probability curves of certain strategies or tactics being employed. They're still constrained by the rules, but with a random number here and there. However, you know what is not a priori constrained by many rules? A machine learning brain. It's constrained by the environment and the teaching process, sure, but how exactly it will solve the problem is not defined by some hard-coded if-then-elses. So Google has Google DeepMind, and they unleashed that on the board game Go. There it was called AlphaGo, and then they unleashed it on StarCraft 2, and this AI is known as AlphaStar. Now AlphaStar is really interesting because it is really the general of a StarCraft army. Now it watches the screen as a player would, controls its army in roughly the same way, except it has become better at it. It has beaten so many professional players. I think AlphaStar might at this point even be world champion, I'm not sure. Well, a robot can't be a world champion, I guess, but if it could. With AlphaStar we are looking at an AI taking up the role of a general, and it's really impressive because there's a lot for it to learn to get to that level. Google has invested lots of resources into developing AlphaStar, many hours of skilled data scientists and server parks of computing power, so I decided that is not going to work for me. I don't have that kind of resources, but we can still use a machine learning agent, albeit in a somewhat different way. Not to steer the entire army, but to control a single unit, like one bold awakened unit, one Rambo, let's say. This unit is going to completely ignore the heuristic AI that usually tries to tell him where to go, what to attack, etc. Instead, he'll just be wreaking havoc on its own, like a real Rambo would. I think that will make a really interesting case, as it works perfectly in tandem with the heuristic AI. So the normal AI will churn out some units to some predictable strategies, and all the while there's this one really annoying rogue unit that somehow doesn't seem to care, just goes off destroying things on its own. I really like the idea because of the inability of most humans to multitask. So the army behaves one way, and then there's this one guy that just needs to be dealt with separately because he's not part of a group, or because he exhibits some really strange behavior. So depending on how good this ML agent becomes, this can really add to the challenge for a human player. So yeah, to summarize, great fun ahead. We're going to make this Rambo unit happen. In the next video you'll get to meet him, so see you then.